Hey, y'all, we are here. I know you thought it wasn't going to happen. It's usually like that whole, hey, it's Monday, it's 8:30, it's Conversations with Teresa. Well, it is 8:41. It's still Monday. It's still Conversations with Teresa. And guess what? We have a pretty remarkable woman on with us this evening. I'm super excited. This is someone that I know from the dance world in Boston. All right. And so we are still celebrating Women's History Month. And there's so much to celebrate. There's so many different aspects that we can take a look at tonight. We're going to take a look and listen to a favorite person of mine. And we're going to bring her on into the studio. Her name is Adrienne Hawkins. Adrienne is like ridiculously the coolest choreographer. Carl's awesome, obviously, right? But I'm just talking about for a Black woman, coolest choreographer. She just got moves. She does her thing, And the way that I've gotten a chance to know her, again, through Carl, through the dance world, through Dance Complex and all the other opportunities that we have. And she's just been an incredible constant light in the dance community here. And so when I was trying to think of, who do we honor? Who do we lift up? Who do we, celebrate? Adrienne was definitely one of the people that came to mind because she gives so much back to the arts and entertainment world here in Boston. And so I am super excited to be able to have this conversation and really just get to know her better. So Adrienne, welcome to Conversations with Teresa.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is such an honor.
Absolutely.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, like I said, whenever I get a chance to go out into the dance world and there's an event or whatever, Adrienne is always there. But not only is Adrienne there, whoever is performing, they're like, oh, Adrienne's here, right? It's one of those responses that, it's just like, okay, now we can start because Adrienne is here. And she's done so much for us in the community that we don't even know about, things in the background. So we're going to get into it. You guys have heard enough from me. Adrienne, I'm going to start off just asking you a question. How did you get into choreography? How did you get into the arts?
Well, actually, I didn't start in the arts. I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer. When yes, that was my thing because I had done all the protesting and stuff from since I was a little kid. I sold Jet and Ebony. I was at the original March on Washington.
Okay.
I was in the civil rights movement and stuff, and I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer. And I went to school for political science. And in college, I ran into dance. I was always an athlete, always. My whole family are athletes.
Okay.
And I was always an athlete, but it was before Title IX, and there wasn't any teams or anything that I could join that was there. So that's how I got into dance, because I wanted to move or do something, I started with what was those things? Something like jazzercise or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And my teacher said, "No, you really need to take a dance class." I said, "Okay, what does it look like?" And that was how I fell into it.
Wow.
Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to come back to this, civil rights lawyer, because that didn't come up. I didn't know that part.
Oh yeah. Oh my. Oh yes.
I am definitely gonna have to come up to that. That is really awesome. And then you also said that you were part of the march.
Yeah, I was at the original march on Washington. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying the original, like what?
1963.
Okay. I was
original March on Washington. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
And so I was young, but I went, neither my mother nor my father went. I went with friends,
Wow.
and I was like, what, I think 12 or 13,
Oh
14
my
maybe.
gosh.
Yeah. And I went to the original March on Washington. Yep.
So all right, you
I,
got to
I
tell us,
love
what was that like? Like
we
you
went.
just going there and doing, like, did you know you wanted to be a lawyer then, or were you like
No,
inspired?
I mean, because of all of the like I said, I sold jets, ebony and jets when I was a kid. I mean, that
Mhm.
was my job. That's how I made my money. Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
And I I looked at it, and it was like the thing that seemed like it would have the easiest way to change everything was the law. And I still to this day,
Mm.
have a thing for law and lawyers, and how it is that they bend the law, or they twist it in order to accommodate what they're trying to get to, and how. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. That's
Yes.
a different show.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, there's so much.
But
There's
that
so much
but,
there.
but I started dance, and they sort of threw me into it. It was like, well, you should apply for this, or you should, and I didn't know anything. I was a cheerleader. I wasn't a dancer. And, I knew nothing about the dance world in a sense. They said, oh, you should try out for orchesis. So I tried out for orchesis, and I got it, but I didn't know what it meant until I saw like people crying over in the corner because they didn't get it. I didn't, I just thought it was like, we take everybody, I didn't know it was like, even though they did sort of audition, I didn't even know what an audition was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you
But
say orchesis?
orchesis, that was the name of the dance group in college.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I don't know what an orchesis.
Yeah. It was the dance group in colleges were called orchesis. I don't know why,
Okay.
yeah.
Because isn't that like a whale?
I have no idea. No, that's orchis.
I thought an orcas was a
That's
whale. So
orchis.
that's why I was like, I don't know what you're saying.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's how I got into it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
And I
Well,
actually took composition and advanced Graham as my first classes, because I didn't know. I came into a composition class, and everybody wanted to know, well, what are you doing here? And I said, well, my teacher told me to take a class. And they said, well, have you ever, because the dance community in colleges are very small. And everybody in the composition class, everybody knows everybody because they've taken class with each.
I see.
Here I walk in, and they don't know who I am. I'm coming out from space. And I said, well, I'm here to take a dance class. And they go, well, yeah, we dance, but we make up dances. And I said, I can make up a dance.
I love it. I
And
love
they
it.
said, and I don't know why, but they said, well, you could take the class, but you have to take a technique class. So I said,
Okay.
okay, what does technique look like, in the book? Because it was at Arizona State. There's 40,000 people, and the book that gives the classes looks like a telephone book. So I said, what does the technique class look like in the book?
Yep.
So they go, it was TEC or something like that. Arizona
Okay.
State's a party school. You can't have it on Friday. You can't have it on Monday. You
Oh,
can't have it, too much in the day, because you got to get some sun time, and you got to get some party time, and you got to get this. The class that fit in was the advanced class. I walked in, the same thing again. They go, who are you? I said, well, I'm here to take a technique class. And they said, well, have you I'm like, I can do that.
wow.
Like, what are you doing that I can't? I know I can do that.
Okay.
And they let me take class.
Wow.
I have no idea why they did, but they did. But the thing is that I think I told you that everybody in my family is an athlete. I mean, from my father, my mother, my brother, my
Mm-hmm.
nieces, I mean, all of us, my cousins, everybody was an athlete. And it wasn't until I started teaching that I realized that I don't look at what you do, I look at how you do it. And
Mm.
that is a very, very different way of looking. And I realize that people don't look at how you do the movement. They look at what is being done and they try to imitate that. And
Okay.
that's not necessarily how to do it.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
tell us about the difference. Like what, as a
Well,
non-dancer, like,
I,
because I'm that,
well,
that onlooker.
a lot of times what happens is that they'll see an arm go up and a leg go up and, this go up, and they don't realize that they have stepped down into their foot to stabilize themselves in
Okay.
order to make that work. The
Huh.
foot going down is equivalent to how far you can get your leg up. But some people just see the leg going up and they don't stabilize themselves.
Oh,
Like for me, I can play as good if no, I don't play tennis. I haven't played tennis, but I can play tennis as good as the person who is across the net because I can see what they do and I can see how they do it. If I don't
okay.
have a visual of what it is, it's
Okay.
a whole different thing. But if I see what they do and how, if I see how they do what they do to accomplish what happens, then I can get an understanding of it.
Okay.
And what I feel is though, natural athletes, natural with the natural ability, that's what they see because I see it in my students. There's some students you don't you if you show them something, they will be able to do the whole thing and make it one. And some people you show it and it looks like a broken doll, but everything's moving. But everything's moving. When you go, what were you looking at? I hope you didn't think that I look like that. But you did that what you did.
Yeah. Well, that's me in dance class. I'm like,
Yeah. And for me, it's the matter of people who can see that. Yeah,
hmm.
because what happens is that they get ahead faster
Yeah.
because they can look through and into the body and not necessarily on the surface of the body.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, look at that. All
yeah,
right.
I know. So that's how I started dancing. And then it was like one thing after another thing. And then I changed my major because the reading got a little bit to me. So I changed from political science to education.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got my degree in elementary education. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So, where did the desire to become a lawyer, civil rights lawyer, where did that come into play in life? Before college, after college?
That kind of got sucked up by the dance thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it was like I absolutely loved dancing,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what happens is that I almost felt as though it was something that I was drawn to with the civil rights lawyer. But what happens is that I loved dance. So I sort of continued on with that as opposed to, doing something that I feel that was, something that was needed or wanted, but it may not have been the passion that I had. So I had to follow my passion.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah.
that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
What do you think would have happened had you not followed your passion? What do you
I
think would have
probably would have been
happened
a
for
lawyer.
you in life?
I probably would have been a lawyer or a hopefully I would have been a judge after a period of time. Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I love that, you said that because following our passions as women, like we typically, I don't know if it typically is the right word, but when we follow our passions, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it is phenomenal.
Yes. And the thing is that I had no path. I had no path. I knew nobody who was a dancer. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't, it was like, I was just, I felt like I was just out there, finding, what it was that was out there,
Yeah. You think you found it?
I think I know I did. Yeah, I know I did. I couldn't see myself as anything else except a dancer, whether it be a teacher, choreographer, student, writer, or, anything like that. Yeah.
Okay. And I remember you saying that you moved here. Well, you moved around quite a bit, but
No.
when you got you got to Boston, you were teaching at BU. You said, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I was there for 4 years, coming out of graduate school. I went to Connecticut College and got a master's in dance. And my master's, I went from, let me see now, I think it was 73 to 74 or 5, and walked in 76. I think I started teaching at BU before I actually walked. So I think it was like 74, 75 that I was at BU. And I was there for 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, I graduated from BU in 90 something.
Yeah.
When I graduated, I won't say alone, but I felt alone. I was definitely usually one of the only people of color. No, I'm sorry. There was plenty of people of color. There was the only Black person in class, or maybe, one other, in class. So how was that like for you in 70s?
Well, what happens is that I had been acclimated to it in different ways. There was like, out of like about 480 some people that graduated from my high school, I think 5 were Black. I went to Tennessee State out of high school. I went to Tennessee State. Okay. And I was there for 2 quarters and then transferred to Arizona State, because I had gone to Arizona State before I went to Tennessee State, and then I went back to Arizona. And in Arizona, like, I was one. That was it. I swear. I was like the only.
Oh my God.
Wait, let me think about this. I'm going to say this. Let me think. I think I was the only, there was 2 Black out of state females at Arizona State that I knew, out of state. And there was like 40,000 people. So what happens is that I knew all of the football players, the basketball players, the track
athlete.
Yes, all the athletes, because all the athletes were recruited. They were all on scholarship. So I knew all of them because but they all felt like sort of paternal to me, because my brother played for Arizona State, and he graduated like the year that I came in. So it was like, it was like one big happy family,
Right.
I was there, me and the guys.
Oh, that's cool. That's helpful to be able to go into, a home, when you look different.
Yeah. And then what happens at Connecticut College, it was the same way. I was the only one in the dance department. And the same way when I came to BU, I was the only one. Not only was I the only one, I was the only Black person and had the highest degree. Everybody else had a bachelor. I already had my master's in dance coming into BU,
Okay. So how did that play into, I thought about becoming a lawyer. I was at the march. I went into dance, and now I'm the only Black person here. Like, how did you navigate that? Like, what?
Well, I left.
Okay. Wow. That's the way. left.
Well, I did. I laughed. It was like I was saying, it's like when I got there and I realized, I said, no, where are my people? I didn't think there was any black people in Boston because I was in, all of the colleges, and all of the colleges were all, I'm like, oh no, no, there's got to be some black people somewhere.
Somebody.
I know. And then in a city, oh no, I just have to find them. So what I did was basically, I found like Elma Lewis, and I found like the Joy of Movement Center. And it was, the Joy of Movement Center wasn't all black, but it was integrated.
Okay.
And Elma Lewis was all black. So what happens is that one of the reasons why I left BU is that I went over to the Joy of Movement Center because it was the academia was putting me in a box, and it was saying basically to me that even though you have the highest degree and blah 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 blah, because you're a black woman doing jazz, is that you don't have as much say so in how we are going to organize things as the white women doing modern dance with a bachelor's, because it's like, it's almost like you don't understand. And I want to tell them, I'm like, no, you see, I didn't get a master's in jazz. I got a master's in modern, in your technique, not mine.
Wow.
I had to like to get the people to even see that what I was using was the technique they gave me for another genre. But and it was just like, I just didn't feel like fighting. I just really didn't. I said, I don't feel like I have to validate myself, 360 days out of the year, and and fight with you and fight with this. And so, I left and I went to the Joy of Movement Center, and I stayed with them for like 18 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's such a great point that you make. Like, you didn't feel like you needed to validate. And a lot of times we do, we feel like we need to like prove ourselves over and over again. And you were like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, what happens is that it's like, if you don't understand that I have a master's and she has a bachelor's, and I therefore understand or know more than she does, and you can't see that, I said, I'm hitting my head against a brick wall, and I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
I just really can't be bothered.
No. And,
yeah, because what happens, it's taken energy from me to do that, to educate you on something that I don't need to. I mean, it's hard enough to choreograph and get all the people together and make up dances and and
exactly
syllabuses and have papers and do all of this. And then on top of that, I have to educate you, not only once or twice, but all the time on every point that's given. I said, no, that's too much work.
Yeah.
I need to go somewhere where, people just look at me and say, oh yeah, that's Adrienne. She does that, period.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to say that, Adrienne, she does this. Yeah, that's you do that. That's good. And I do this. That's good. I just want equal treatment of my art. That's it.
Yes. Yes. So important.
I don't want you saying I have to do like you, because I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you left.
Yeah.
And I'm really, like I said, when I go to, performances and see you and see the reaction because you're there, you really do elevate whomever is performing. So, people come. I think the last show that we were at together was like, I don't know, maybe October, November. And I remember I sat in the front row, Billy and Bobby's show.
Ah, yes.
And I know, because you done been to a lot of them. I know.
Yeah.
You're like, which
I know. What was that?
But
was that an Arrow?
it was, where was we were
In
in
Cambridge.
we were in Cambridge.
Yeah, it was the Arrow. It was the new
Yeah.
Arrow Theater.
Yes, yes, because they just remodeled it not too
Yeah.
long ago.
Uh-huh.
And so we were there, and here they are, like everyone's coming to see them, but you came in and you brightened up the whole place. I mean,
Oh,
it was always already awesome, but your constant presence leaves such a mark on people, and not just performers, but the onlookers like myself, because you stayed true to you. And
yeah.
that takes an incredible amount of strength and courage. And we appreciate you. So
Oh,
I
thank
just wanted to make
you.
sure I
I
said that.
know. I know. I mean, that was the hardest thing because it was still isolating in a sense, because what happens is that, and I think we had part of this conversation, I came into Boston and I was not from Boston. I was not from Cambridge. I came into an academic setting that was very separate from
Mhm.
actual people who were in Boston.
Yeah.
And to be able to navigate between the two of them in a way, and I think we had talked previously about how there's so much talent in Boston,
There is.
but people don't always think that they have to go outside of Boston, and that is just not true.
Mhm.
That all they have to do is, because, like I said, they don't go to the same barbecue. We got this barbecue over there and this barbecue over there, and it's like, okay, I'm going to this one with my people, and we
Yeah.
don't interact. And the people who come in to the Boston area come in at a different place, because, like me, unless I really, go and try and find it, I could very easily just stay like in academia and
Mhm.
would never know anything about the Boston dance scene,
Mm.
because
Wow.
it would be, that's a whole different thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Ah, there's so much. There's so much. I so enjoyed our conversation yesterday, earlier today, and it's been great just getting to know you and just really getting to know, you know, the world of the arts in a different way. Again, so as an onlooker, that's one thing, but kind of behind the scenes, you've definitely opened my eyes to a few things. I have a question. I know we have to wrap up soon,
Go.
but are there any specific pieces of your art that you've done that display, that you feel like display your resilience?
Well, there's a piece that, I choreographed, or it's not choreographed. It's an improv.
Okay.
I did this dance in 1970 something something.
Some.
Something something. And people always ask me for that piece. They always want me to do this piece. And it's called
Okay.
Bid 'em In. It's a slave auction. And it's done to Oscar Brown Jr. And it's called Bid 'em In. And it's he just goes, bid 'em in, bid 'em in. That sun is hot and plenty bright. Let's get down to business and get home tonight. Bid 'em in. Auctioning slaves is a real high art. Bring that young girl, Roy. She's good for a start. Bid 'em in. And it goes on like that.
Wow.
And people, and it's a solo, and people always, that is one of the things that sticks with I'm to this day. It was like Shomba asked me to do bid him in for something that I'm like, Shomba, you know how old I am? You have oxygen for me? I'm glad there's no like double turns down into a split. I said,
Okay.
I'll give you, my older, more mature version of it.
There you go. The
It's
more
like,
mature.
And it's really funny. And then people say to me, I run into people and they say, that piece that you did, I mean, I said, even in my 70s, that's the one that that was oh my gosh, that was so inspiring. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the one that seems to everybody who sees that particular solo is
Okay.
just, is there like,
Right. Now,
yeah.
is there a place that we could go and see this digitally? I won't ask you to do it, right? Because you already told someone no.
I I don't know. I don't know if she has a copy of it that I did like a couple of years ago. I think it was
Okay.
last summer, summer before last, or something like that. I
All
don't
right.
know, but I did do it because it's an improv in different places. I don't know if you know who Mel Tomlinson was, but he was a ballet dancer that danced with Dance Theater of Harlem. He danced with Boston Ballet, and he was the one that started City Steps. That was Boston Ballet's outreach program.
Okay.
And I did it with him. And the one thing that really like freaked everybody out. Now he passed away, but he was like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", something like that.
Okay.
And I picked him up in the
Okay.
sheets and, and walked across.
Ah!
Oh my goodness. They were like,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I need to go find that now.
Oh yeah. That one I do have on what you call it on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right. So after the show, we're gonna have to find this and I'm gonna have to post this because
Oh,
that's
okay.
some good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I have a bunch of them that are really hard hitting. The one that I did for the Boston Conservatory a couple of years ago, now 5-6 years ago, was called Sankofa: the temptation to look back while going forward, and it was all Temptations music.
Oh,
Yeah, but it went in reverse back from Ball of Confusion, and then it went backwards to what was the last one? Can't Get Next to You.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it was yeah.
I know. I just keep like.
Yeah. It was that one. But the one that I did with Mel was called How We Resist Authority.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know that we are coming. Wow, I didn't even realize what time it was.
Yeah. It's like 9:14.
It is 9:14. We started a little bit late too, so we're like technically only 5 minutes later. But in us closing, and again in honor of Women's History Month, is there anything that you'd like to leave? Whether it was things you would like to leave to the next generation of dancers, or just to women in general?
I always say follow your heart and don't it's like don't think that you can't have your own.
Okay.
And that's the thing that you need. It's sometimes the one thing that I say to and it's dancers in general, but mostly women, it's like, don't let anybody fog up what you want by how it is that they think you should be. You have to be resistant in how it is that you are going forward, and know, even if it's wrong, like, let it be your wrong and not somebody else's wrong.
I love that. I love that.
Because what happens, you're wrong, you can always change. But if it's somebody else's wrong, you don't even know what went wrong.
Facts.
Because it wasn't yours to begin with. It could have been, it could have been theirs, Yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, thank you so much. Like I said, You are a woman worthy of just being honored. You've done a lot. You've done a lot, obviously for my husband,
Uh,
and who speaks highly of you. But again, the at least the whole dance community that I know is like, whoa, it's Adrienne. So thank you for being you. Thank you for your resilience. Thank you for your commitment to bringing the arts to Boston. So Boston and beyond.
and bringing the world of art from the outside into Boston, because I did a lot of touring in a lot of different countries.
That's right. You were telling me like Japan and
Oh,
Europe and
Australia, Iceland, Belgium, the Netherlands, Northern Ireland, the Caribbean, I like all over. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Keep it up.
I will.
All right. So everyone, thank you guys so much for joining Conversations with Teresa. Yeah. You guys are amazing and phenomenal, and I appreciate you. We look forward to seeing you next Monday, same time, same place. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit that little bell so that you do not miss an episode. It'll just come right to you and say, don't forget, tap on. So looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Until then, be blessed. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.